everybody. Welcome back to our feature segment here. Today we're going to be talking about month-end closing procedures. So this is a topic that, it may not be near and dear to every end user's heart, right? This is for the accounting folk, the finance team who's responsible for doing the month-end reporting and everything.
Your people.
Yeah,
the
right
people.
up my alley. But one of the things one of the reasons this is an important topic and something that does come up a lot is because it impacts almost every organization that's using Business Central, right? If you're running whatever modules you're running, you ultimately are probably closing out a month and doing some sort of reconciliation and reporting out of the system.
Is there a need for a business not to do month end?
If you're using it kind of just not as your full ERP system, maybe you're just using it to capture sales orders, and then ultimately you have some other financial reporting solution out there, or you're just tracking inventory or something and not doing financial reporting. But by and large, most companies are running it as a full ERP system. General ledger, accounts receivable, accounts payable, purchasing, sales order management, inventory, maybe manufacturing, maybe jobs, right? So you have all these different modules that are being used, and all of the GL entries are rolling up into your financial statements, right? So a lot of questions come up, like, what are we supposed to do at the end of the month? How do we close a month, right? And part of the difficulty with month end is that you get to the end of the month, and that day of the month that it's on is always a different day of the month. Sometimes it's a Monday.
30th? Oh, okay.
Sometimes it's a Saturday.
Even a different date too, right?
Yeah.
30th or 31st.
Yep, 30th,
28th.
31st, right. So people, want to know, how can I cross over entries over multiple periods at the same time, and can I go back and still run clean set of financials?
Yeah.
So
It's a great question.
I thought what we would do is go through, and we have some documented notes that we can make available on the show notes page for people to reference this whole scenario that we're going to talk through. I realize it's a lot to go through verbally in this format, just because it's easier to see
The process.
See it in writing or slides and with dates and things. But what I thought we would do is, because it is July right now, let's pretend like we're going to be preparing for our upcoming month-end close.
Okay.
At the end of July. So we're going to talk about what are we going to want to do as the end of July approaches and as we get into early August. Okay.
All right.
So a few assumptions. So what are the steps what are the setups, I should say, that are involved with closing your month end in Business Central? The first is there are two fields on the general ledger setup page. They're called allow posting from and allow posting to. This allows you to establish a date range in which people can post transactions. Now, this is really used for two dual purposes, which is a little kind of hidden secret. The first is that if you don't have a user setup record for a user, or you don't have any dates defined for a user, then these are used as the default allowable posting date ranges. Okay.
So it's globally for the general.
Global, right? Across all users. Okay. But there's also the second setup table is user setup. In the user setup record, you create one record for each user of Business Central. And on that user record, there also is an allow posting from and allow posting to date. And that's a date range that you're going to set. Our best practices say always create a user setup record for every user. And the reason is because there are other fields on the user setup record that you may be using There's responsibility center filters. There's a time register. There's an email address field. There's a salesperson purchaser code that you can use to link each user to a specific salesperson, which can be used for filtering. So you may not be using any of those, but you may start using some of those fields. So we just always say, anytime a new user gets set up, create a user record and a user setup record.
So what happens when if the employee leaves the company one way or the other, can you...
You can delete it.
I apologize, am I jumping forward?
Yeah, no, perfect. Yeah. So it really only has to be active users that are in there. So someone leaves the company, you can just delete the user setup record.
Okay, simple enough.
Yeah. Now, so what we propose, and then the third setup that's required to completely control and lock your period is if you have items, inventory, then you must set up and close inventory periods. This is one of the things that I see most often where people have inventory, they want to go through a secure month-end process and lock down that closed period, but they don't even have inventory periods set up and they're not closing them on a regular basis. That's a major issue. So that's one of the key things that's going to be part of this process.
So month end is also key for year end, right?
Year end, we've got at the year end you're going to do a normal month end plus a few year end steps.
Okay.
So yeah, there is a year end process, but the assumption is you've done your normal month end first.
Okay. Which makes sense.
Then you just do a few year end steps. Okay. All right. So, in this scenario, now let's assume that we believe all of our July activity is going to be finally entered and completed on August 5th.
Okay.
Right? Because that's pretty common, where
7 days after that in the month or whatever.
You need several days after the actual last day of the month to process maybe some payables invoices, to get your payroll journal entry entered or uploaded. You may need to do some other entries, maybe invoice some customers based on projects that are going on. So
generally a week after.
You know what?
5 days.
It's changes organization to organization. It could be 3 days. It could be 20 days.
Oh, really? Wow.
It just depends how often. We have many customers that get this whole thing done within 5 days.
Wow.
Every month. Yeah. So let's use August 5th as that date that we expect everything is going to be done. We're going to be finished with July. So what do we do? How do we go about going through our month end? The first thing that we're going to do, and this is during July when we're closing June. So back when we're closing June, what we want to do is set up all the user setup records to allow posting to August 5th. Even in the middle or late June.
Okay.
Set that allow posting to date to August 5th. The reason to do that is so that when you get to July 31st and you roll into the next day, August 1st, users won't get posting errors. Because you may have users who come in at 6 a.m., 7 a.m., or even a third shift on August 1st. You don't want to have someone there updating that field on that day. So why not just allow them the first few days of August? Right. Okay?
So that's something you have to do every month?
Every month we're going to do that. Okay? All right, so that's the first thing we're going to do. Now, on August 1st, most users are just going to go about their normal business, right? I'm entering some inventory transactions. I'm receiving against a purchase order. I just set my posting date to August 1st, and I continue posting. Right? We have that posting date field. So the posting date field is what's going to allow us to effectively backtrack, retroactively run our reports as of July 31st.
Okay.
So that we can be posting, and we can also be posting entries back into July. So some users, right, on August 1st, I may be posting some transactions to July 31st, some I'm posting to August 1st. I can the point is, I can cross over periods fine. It doesn't matter.
Just because you change the dates, no big deal.
Yeah. There's no point in time
error
where I have to
messages.
freeze all my July activity and run some reports and then move on with August. You can cross over periods, different users, all you want. No problem.
Okay.
All right. Now it's August 5th. And we're done. We've kind of gotten from everyone word that they're done with July. What are we going to do? The first thing we're going to do is we're going to change the allow posting to date on all user setup records to September 6th, 2022.
Okay.
Right? So that's going back to the first step where I said
Right.
we're going to update
Do it
this.
every month.
Right?
Yep.
So every month you're going to roll that forward to the next month. That's going to make sure when we get to September 1st that they can post next month. Second thing we're going to do, we're going to change the allow posting from date on their users, all user setup records, to August 1st.
Okay.
What that will do is that will ensure that no users can post
after.
any entries back into July.
Okay.
Now you may be saying, well, wait, maybe I have a few people in my accounting department who are still going to need to go post some adjusting entries for July. That's fine. You can update that back to July later. But for right now, we want to set that to August 1st.
And you can do this by individual?
Per person, yep,
Okay.
per user. Next step, we're going to close the inventory period that ends on July 31st. In order to close a period, the system's going to verify that you don't have any negative inventory and that all costs for all items have been fully adjusted. There's a test report you can run that's going to tell you why can't it close it if it can't close the period.
Oh.
Then you go correct those entries or you run the adjust cost item entries process and then you can close the period.
Nice. I did not know there was a test report.
Yep, it's very nice, very easy. It shows you exactly where the issue is. If it's a negative on-hand inventory, it actually tells you the item ledger entry that is negative
Really?
and unapplied. So you can
Wow.
go find that item, see what happened. I should never have negative. I can't physically have negative
Right.
inventory, right? So something went wrong.
Don't just change it, figure it out.
Correct. Yep. If I have to adjust it, that's where I would go open access to July, make a correction and adjust it back, right? Okay, so now I've closed my inventory period. Now what I'm going to do is change the allow posting from date on my general ledger setup to August 1st. So two things this does. First, it ensures that, again, if I'm missing a user setup record, that they can't post activity into July anymore. But also, that field is used by the adjust cost item entries process to determine the date on which any adjusting entries related to items should be posted. Here's an example. Let's say that you have an on-hand inventory cost layer that came in on a PO receipt in May.
Okay.
And someone says, hey, the value of that item is wrong. We need to revalue that cost layer. You can do so, and what will happen, because you've closed your inventory periods for May, June, and July, it'll look to the general ledger setup allow posting from date, and it will use that date as your entry on those revaluations.
So it uses, okay. Why is that? Just so it doesn't create like a
Because
an
I
internal
can't post into May, and I
Okay,
can't
it's
even
already
post
closed.
into June or July because I've closed those inventory periods.
So it just has to use the
It has
available
to
days.
it has to use a current period date.
Okay.
And so it looks at whatever the earliest date is, which is that allow posting from date on general ledger setup.
I thought I read something though that you were allowed to go back and change something if it's been closed?
Yeah, so let's say I had a cost layer in July, and now I'm running all these reports and tying everything out, and I see an issue. I can reopen my inventory period, reset my own user setup record to July 1st, and now I can go post that revaluation, and it will
Gotcha.
post it into July.
Okay.
And then I just reclose the inventory period. So to your point, closing that inventory period, you can always reopen it. So there's never a point in time where you do something and then you are locked or prohibited from going back and reopening it to make an adjustment.
Which is great.
Right? So there's no stress. There should be no pressure on doing any of these steps because you can always undo it or reopen the periods.
Yeah, definitely a great
Right?
feature.
So now I've updated all my posting dates. I've closed my inventory periods. Right? I'm all set. It's August 5th. Everyone is set from August 1st through September 6th. Now I go run all my reports as of July 31st. I run my inventory valuation. I run maybe my reconcile inventory to GL report. I run my production WIP report. If I'm using jobs, I run my job WIP to GL report. I run my aged AR accounts receivable, my aged accounts payable reports, and I use the as of date on those to say July 31st.
Okay.
Right? Now, hopefully, I've got no direct posting turned on to any of my system accounts. Everything reconciles, ties out to the penny. If that's the case, I'm done. I run my financial statements, my account schedules, my balance sheet, my income statement. If I'm using another reporting solution, I export my data or I run my financials and I'm finished.
You mentioned direct posting being turned off or whatnot. Would you say that's like a good tip to like take off direct posting on accounts like AR, AP, inventory?
Absolutely. Yeah. Any inventory account, accounts receivable, accounts payable, bank account, any account actually, I would say, used within a posting group, there's a direct posting field on the GL account record. You should turn that off.
Okay.
And what that will do is that will assure you that the only time that account is going to get hit is through the use of that posting group.
Gotcha.
So you cannot get out of balance.
All right, good
Right?
tip. Good tip.
Okay? And as we kind of just discussed, worst case scenario happens, nothing's reconciling. Fine, reopen your July inventory period, reset your user setup, allow posting from dates to July 1st. Go post whatever adjustments you need
Right.
and then reclose the process once you have everything worked out. But the key is you can pick and choose which users you want to still provide access to July. The most common scenario is that you go through this whole process that we just described on August 5th. Everything ties out and reconciles and we're looking good. But if I'm the controller or assistant controller or staff accountant, I still may have entries that I need to post. So I would go into the user setup table and allow access to July to just those users. And now I know, because they have to post just journal entries or maybe write off some accounts receivable or something.
Now, what do you say to the user who says, there's just too many people, too many employees for me to have to change dates? Is there something I can do to set up or?
Well, I would say if you're not going to go through this process or a very similar process, right? I'm not saying this is how you have to do it, but this is a method that works for us,
Gotcha.
for our clients. It's something that it's straightforward. It's repeatable. It's a repeatable process, right? If you aren't willing to do this, so if you're a small company, let's say, and you have 30 users on your user setup list, how long does it take you to type in a date hit down arrow F8 30 times. I can do it in about 30 seconds.
So not the non-experienced,
you're
35
talking,
seconds?
Yeah, maybe a minute, So you're talking about, I'm talking about
15
approximately
minutes, 20 minutes.
5 minutes to update these dates and go through this once a month. So 5 minutes times 12, is that 60?
Mm-hmm. It is, yes. Counting back up, come on now.
So you're talking about 1 hour per year to do this. Now, if you're a huge company and you have 400 or 500 user setup records, then my suggestion would be that you are large enough to develop an extension to maybe automate the update of those fields, right?
Gotcha.
Have a little utility that you can enter the date once, click OK, and it goes through all the records and updates them. Right?
Gotcha.
And if it takes you a few hours for a developer to create that extension, but it saves you all of that, all those keystrokes, that's, then that's fine. That should not be a problem for you, right?
A lot of people got time crunches.
Right. I know they think of it as busy work, like, I got to hit F8 down arrow 40 times or 50 times.
Yeah, you think it takes longer than it actually will.
But it's you have to look at it as return on investment. As a controller, one of my primary job functions is to maintain the integrity of the financial data.
Right.
And if that means that I have to spend an hour or 2 hours per year controlling my user setup date fields,
So
to
be
me,
it. Yeah, it's worth it.
that's
It's worth it. Yeah.
right? It's not even. It's not even worth wasting your time. So that is
Pretty
it.
cool.
That is it.
Pretty
Right?
cool.
Like I said, it's very forgiving in terms of that. There's never a point where you can't reallow access to a prior period. You can't reopen the inventory period. And the last little note I would say is, if you say we get a lot of questions like, hey, well, this is great and all, but what would happen if I set this date to this value instead, or I did this? And my answer is typically, I don't know. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Right?
You can't have an answer for crazy questions.
Yeah. So like what would in this scenario, if I did this type of adjustment and I had this date set to this instead of that, what would happen? Usually it's I don't know, let's go into a sandbox and let's try it.
Nice.
And see what happens, right?
Yeah.
And actually, just to prepare for today, I did that on a few things to go in just to double check to make sure how certain things work. So create a sandbox,
Give it a shot.
go in, test it out, and see how different combinations react based on how you have different fields set.
Nice. So I saw a couple things on the internet, and I can't remember if you touched about one of them, but these are like tips to make month end a little bit easier. And one of them was that I saw was to create reoccurring user tasks for people or groups and assign those tasks to them. I can't remember if you mentioned that.
Sure, I didn't mention it, but yeah, that's a good use of the user tasks feature.
Yeah, on the homepage.
That sits on your role center,
Mm-hmm.
where you can create a recurring task for a user once per month, for example.
And then the other one was basically don't be afraid to use the bookmarking feature. If you have to, whatever your task is, you're on a page frequently or whatever, bookmark it.
Right.
So make your life a little bit easier. All right. So Ken, way to go. Detailed month-end process, closing process.
Yeah, I hope that helps. Again, I know we get a lot of questions about it. What should I be doing at the end of the month? There's a lot of turnover, different companies, new or promotions, and someone new takes over the month end. So we do have a document that we can share and make available.
Yep.
And what we would recommend as these steps.
All right. So we're going to move right into what? Into a B&B e-commerce app. We're going to take a look at it.